Tyler Jackson, Acaden Lewis, Kiyan Anthony, Sadiq White, and Chris Cenac. I'll just put it out there just really fast, let you think about it just for a second.
You are Locked On Syracuse, your daily podcast on the Syracuse Orange. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome into Locked On Syracuse. I'm Jackson Holzer, and thank you for making us your first listen of every single day here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day, and we're free and available wherever you get your podcasts. And on today's show, we are joined by Sam Lance. He is a basketball recruiting expert for the zagsblog.com. You can check it out in the description below. So we're going to go over Kiyan Anthony and Tyler Jackson possibly teaming up. Sadique White is certainly helping the recruiting effort, and other Cuse Basketball targets in 2025 and possibly 2026 as well. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more as playoffs wind down. The sports stop sporting like we want them to. But this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day all summer long. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Welcome, Sam, to the podcast. And first and foremost, I would like to say happy 23rd birthday to you. I hope you enjoyed Peach Jam, and I'm so thankful that you're spending some of your birthday to hop on the podcast.
It's my pleasure, Jackson. Thank you so much for having me. There's nothing else I'd rather be doing on my birthday than talking hoops. So let's do it, man. Let's get into it.
That's awesome. And yeah, let's get right to it. Kiyan Anthony and Tyler Jackson, two players that you wrote about, possibly looking to team up with each other. So Kiyan Anthony, what are you hearing regarding his recruitment?
Yeah, so obviously the big news with Kiyan Anthony is that he's getting his top list coming soon. I would expect that maybe as soon as today, possibly, or sometime later this week. But with that top list, one school that I would really expect to be there is Syracuse, of course. So really, with Kiyan Anthony right now, we kind of don't know a ton about his recruitment as far as other schools. I know Rutgers, I know Ohio State has kind of been jumping in there recently, but we're on the Syracuse podcast, so let's kind of focus on Syracuse. I think the cool thing with Kiyan Anthony and kind of his recruitment is how really uninvolved Carmelo Anthony is. I mean, Carmelo obviously brought a national championship to Syracuse, is probably one of Syracuse's most historic players, one of their, greatest players of all time at that university. And I think that it's really cool that he's not really pressuring him to go to Syracuse. He's very uninvolved in terms of pushing him that way or pushing him any sort of direction. And I think that's pretty rare when it comes to kind of these NBA dads. He's not really involved in his recruitment. He's not out there saying, no, you, Sam Lance, you reporters can't talk with Kiyan about his recruitment. So I think that has just kind of been a really cool and really important for Kiyan. But obviously, I think Carmelo would love to see him at Syracuse. And as Kiyan said, the coaches are recruiting Kiyan for Kiyan and not for Carmelo. And I think he really likes that. And I think that's why Syracuse is in a good position right now with Kiyan Anthony.
That's awesome to hear. And I know some people might say and might be a little bit discouraged perhaps that other schools are involved and why isn't Carmelo pushing Kiyan to go to Syracuse and all that. What I would say is look at some other all-time greats and their sons or their daughters. They do not always follow in the footsteps, right? You see it present day. Arch Manning is at Texas. If you go look up the Manning family, none of them went to Texas. It's all about the fit and the individual, and I do appreciate that you have reported that, hey, they are recruiting Kiyan for Kiyan and not Kiyan for Carmelo Anthony. So I view it as a positive. What type of player is Kiyan Anthony?
So Kiyan, is very similar to his father in the fact that he can score the basketball. I mean, that is Kiyan's calling card. If you watch his games, he's getting up a lot of shots. I mean, that is his thing. He scores the ball. I think he had a 40-point game while down in Peach Jam. And then the game that I watched, he was playing Team Durant. That was like the one game that I really watched in full of Kiyan. He dropped like 26, 8 of 12 shooting. So really, he's just a scorer. He's had NBA level training for a long time now, as he's kind of, built his career, has been growing in his game. And you can see it out on the court. Like, he has a bag that is developed. Like, he knows what spots he can get to. He knows what shots he can make, and he makes them a lot more often than he doesn't make them. So really, I would just say he's kind of, your prolific scorer. He's going to put the ball in the hoop. He doesn't necessarily have to be a ball dominant player. And I don't really think he is right now for Team Melo, because, he has Tyler Jackson there to run the one, handle the ball. So really, I think he's just kind of your scoring wing, just kind of like Carmelo was.
How do you think he can improve his game?
With Kiyan, I think it'll be more consistent finishing around the basket. And then defensively, I think that he shows a lot of, intensity on the defensive end, but just really honing down on that end and becoming a stopper, I think will kind of be the next level in this game. But let's call it like it is. He's a scorer. That's what he's on the court to do, is score the basketball.
Sweet. And you mentioned Tyler Jackson. So same question to start off with Kiyan Anthony. What are you hearing regarding Tyler Jackson's recruitment?
Yeah, so Tyler Jackson's recruitment has been really quiet, honestly. He has, last time that I talked with him before Peach Jam was in Kansas City, I believe, and he had this gigantic list of schools. Like, he would stop, naming a couple schools, and he'd be like, oh, yeah, and, Auburn, Alabama, and just so I think the big thing for him is narrowing it down. And Tyler also said, while I interviewed him, that he is looking to narrow down his schools as soon as this week. So be on the lookout for that. But I think the tidbit that's really important here, at least for this podcast, is the quote from Tyler Jackson when it comes to playing with Kiyan Anthony. Firstly, Tyler Jackson said that they've really been talking about it. Like, this isn't just something that, us media people are thinking about, seeing them play together. This is something that they are actually talking about. They are actually chatting about and seriously considering doing between them two. So, I mean, that's a big thing. And obviously, Tyler Jackson says this, I love Syracuse, coming from Melo, that's been his program back winning the national championship. Me and Kiyan are really trying to bring another national championship. We're gonna, whatever school he goes to, whatever school I choose, if we choose Syracuse together, we're gonna bring a national championship. You feel me? So that's kind of big. I mean, it seems like they really are in on possibly going to Syracuse, teaming up at Syracuse, and bringing a national championship whenever they get there.
That's music to everyone's ears that are hearing that. So we appreciate it. And you're being honest, right? You're being honest with us. I mean, I've read the quote. I've seen the quote. I've said the quote. So that's awesome. Now, how do they actually plan on attacking their recruitments? Because you mentioned that they might team. He mentioned it actually that, he might consider teaming up and everything like that. So how is that really going about?
I'm not entirely sure. That's kind of conversations between them. But, one thing they both haven't visited Syracuse officially together. I think that might maybe be the next step is here upcoming. They get to Syracuse together, and the coaching staff is kind of able to break things down for them, how it would look, how it would work with them two together. But the biggest thing, again, is their lists are going to be narrowed down here sometime this week, sometime upcoming. So really, once you get that list, we'll know a lot more, just kind of how things are trending, maybe when they might want to commit, things like that.
Got it. And they've both officially visited campus, but like you said, I don't think either visit that they've taken have been together. So if they were to visit campus, first of all, it would also be an unofficial visit, because I think they've both officially visited. They would have to both unofficially visit together. And then, yeah, right. You said they go over.
I believe with the unlimited official rule now, they would be able to go again, but don't quote me on that. I'm not exactly sure, but I think they could visit officially again if they please.
Got it. You know what I say to that? The rules are always changing. So it's sometimes, recently
It's hard to keep up.
we're going to get to scholarships in a second, but they recently upped it to 15. I don't know even when that's going to kick in. I would assume it won't be for this year. It'll be for the following year. But yeah, these rules in college sports are always changing. So, it used to be you get a certain amount of official visits. Now you get unlimited. Do you get more than one at a certain school? I'm not entirely sure. So we'll see how it goes. But regardless, got to get them both on campus at the same time. That's the big takeaway with Kiyan and T-Jack. And like you said, look out for those look out for those lists pretty soon between those two. Passion, drive, and patience, the formula for winning championships, is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors is everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit. Only available to U.S. customers. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Have to turn down the volume with all that shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports today. A free 24/7 sports streaming channel program for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the streaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't miss analysis, opinions, and news. Streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Let's move on now to Sadique White. He is the highest rated player in the class of 2025 to commit, and he just so happened to commit to Syracuse Basketball, which is great. You wrote a piece about it, Sam. How has he been impacting the Syracuse recruitment?
Yeah, Sadique White pretty much said himself that he is very involved and he is doing his part right now to recruit whoever he can to Syracuse. And the big names that he mentioned to me were Acaden Lewis, and then, of course, he said he wants to bring Kiyan Anthony home, and then Tyler Jackson he also mentioned. He said those are kind of the main ones right now that they are really heavily recruiting. And he also said, the main goal whenever it comes to Tyler Jackson, I told him about Tyler Jackson's comments. He was like, of course, that's the main goal, put Cuse back on top. So, yeah, he's really recruiting and in those recruiting efforts with Adrian Autry with Syracuse to bring some of these guys to Syracuse. And, man, I couldn't even imagine what a team of Sadique White, Tyler Jackson, and Kiyan Anthony would bring to Syracuse. National attention, eye-wise, just the whole shebang there. So, yeah, Sadique White is doing his part for sure.
I would say it would definitely be in the top 10 in the country in recruiting class. I mean, they were top 10 last year with Donnie Freeman, Elijah Moore. They don't quite have a Donnie Freeman level prospect in 2025, at least yet, that they're offering. But, we'll see. I think actually Cenac is number 6 in the country. So we'll keep an eye on that too. But I think it would be certainly in the top 10, perhaps even top 5, if they can land all 3. But the question I'm about to ask you is if they land all 4. Because you mentioned Acaden Lewis as well. And I'm not going to put you on the spot and say, what are the odds of it happening? Because it's, who knows, right? But let's say Syracuse does land, in addition to Sadique White, but it's also Kiyan Anthony, Tyler Jackson, and Acaden Lewis. Those 3 are all guards. They're all guards. So how would they all fit together?
Yeah, I think first it's important to note that Acaden Lewis is more of your combo guard. He doesn't necessarily have to be ball dominant to be successful. He's shown that with Team Durant. Tim Walker is a 3-star guard that plays on his Team Durant team. He handles the ball pretty often too. They have some really good guards on that Team Durant team. So firstly, I think it's important to start there. Kaden is capable of playing off the ball. And then, you kind of plug in from there. You got Tyler Jackson is kind of your pure point guard, even though he's a freak athlete and jumps out the gym and really plays above the rim. He's your point guard. He's a great ball handler. He's really fast. So you have him at the 1. You have Acaden to kind of supplement there. And this is all, of course, a hypothetical if they all are to play together. You have Acaden there at the 2. Kiyan really is a perfect 3 for college, in my opinion. He can score. I think he can guard some longer guys. I mean, Kiyan's 6'6", I believe. He's not small by any means. So you have him, and then you have Sadique White, kind of, your stretch 4, your down low guy, your athletic big wing. So I think the 4 of them really on the court together would work really well, and I think would look really good. I mean, that would be something to watch, seeing all of them play together. I couldn't even imagine if those 4 played together on in the EYBL circuit, what that would look like. I think that would be pretty fun, but seeing it at Syracuse would also be pretty awesome.
They may not be the best team in the country if that were to happen. Not to say that those players are bad or anything, but if all 4 are on the floor, everyone's watching. They would be super duper entertaining. And when you were describing Tyler Jackson, it kind of reminded me of someone very recent for Syracuse who just so happened to be their last point guard. Is it fair to say that Tyler Jackson and Judah Mintz are similar to each other?
It's actually funny that you say that because Acaden Lewis actually said in our last interview with him that that's what Syracuse has kind of comped him to a little bit, is the Judah Mintz, which I think is hilarious. But yeah, I could see that with Tyler Jackson as well. He's very bursty, can get downhill. Judah's really, really good at that. So, yeah, I mean, there's definitely some similarities there. But I think it's funny you say that because our last quote from Acaden has Judah Mintz's name in there, which is pretty funny.
So we're recruiting 2 Judah Mintzes.
Basically, if you want 2 of them, I think you have the opportunity here.
What I would say to that is because Judah Mintz, for as great of a player as he is also very polarizing because, he does have his weaknesses as well. And I think oftentimes with great players, we do harp on the weaknesses more and more because they are great and we expect a lot. He was also second team All ACC. So if you can get 2 players that are capable of second team All ACC, I'll be pretty happy. I think we'll all be pretty happy about it. So regarding Sadique White, just as an individual player, what do you think his upside is?
I mean, I think he's a 5-star for a reason. The upside branding there is that he's a future NBA player. And from watching Sadique White, I mean, I see it. He's long, he's athletic, he drives the basketball really well, can finish with both hands. He is a great player. I did not get to watch a lot of Sadique White, but the moments that I did, it seems like he was throwing down a dunk, getting an and one, getting to the line pretty much every time I was looking. So Sadique White is a really good player. I really haven't watched him enough to give you like a really in-depth analysis on his game, but he's a 5-star for a reason. I know he kind of brings up the end of the 5 stars, but he's a really good player.
Awesome. So regarding Sadique White also, Syracuse does have a couple open scholarships for this season. I believe they have 11 of 13 filled out. You don't have to fill out all 13, but 13 is the limit. Next year, I think it'll be 15. That's just all the rules and changing. Sadique White is 18 years old. Technically, he could be eligible for next season. What are the odds that you think that he might reclassify?
I'm not sure on the odds, but I mean, I think it makes sense for Syracuse. I think it makes sense for Sadique White potentially, to get on campus. And even if he decides not, to be a one and done type player, if he goes to campus early, I think having a year under his belt and then waiting for, potentially guys like Kiyan and Tyler Jackson and Acaden Lewis to join him with a year under his belt, I mean, you're looking at a really good experienced, sophomore jump player to have with a great recruiting class potentially there. So, I mean, I think it makes sense for Sadique White to do this, but there really isn't like anything coming from his camp that says that it's going to happen or anything like that. So really it's just kind of something maybe to look out for. But it's nothing that's guaranteed or anything like that. But I think it would be good for Sadique to get on campus early and kind of show what he can do.
Yeah, and regarding that, Syracuse does have the open scholarships. So he can. Like, it's certainly possible he can do it, get the scholarship, everything, have a year on campus. At the same time, I don't know where the playing time is for him. because he's a forward. They got Donnie Freeman. He's playing. Jair Davis, pretty good transfer. Eddie Lampkin's already the center. They got Chris Bell, who's already there as their incumbent 3. I don't really know where Sadique White would fit in, but nevertheless, it's possible. He could, as you said.
Ultimately, that is probably going to be the main factor in the decision. Where does he fit in with this Syracuse team? He's, having those conversations with the coaching staff is going to be important, making this decision. But again, there hasn't been any indication that he could even possibly be mulling a decision like this. So I just think it makes sense. I think it does make a little bit of sense for Sadique White to just get on campus early and work, in a college environment instead of the high school environment. I think it could be good for his career, for his game.
You could, in theory, redshirt as well. It's not as common nowadays to redshirt because, players are looking to play, and who can blame them? And with all the transfer rules and everything, you could go to a place that's going to play right away. But at the same time, if he comes to campus, if he wants to do that, redshirting, certainly an option, and you can keep all 4 years of eligibility. I love sports. I love them so much. I never want them to stop. But as the playoffs wind down, we get fewer games, and the sports aren't sportsing like I want them to. But FanDuel lets me keep the sports going whenever I want. All I have to do is open the app and dream up bets anytime I'm in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. And speaking of Syracuse basketball, FanDuel has released the Orange's odds of winning the national championship next year at plus 12,000. Those are long shot odds, but hey, you'd make a nice profit if they were to win the national championship. So head over to FanDuel.com and start making the most out of your summer. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, and now it's also available on Amazon Fire TV in the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Day is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Day now available on the free Fire TV channels app. So that, I think, closes it with Sadique White. Let's move on to possibly some other recruits. And Sam, just a very broad question for you here. What else are you hearing regarding Syracuse and recruiting?
Yeah, so I think a couple names to kind of look at here are London Jemison. He is more of kind of he's a tall wing, kind of very similar to Sadique in a way, where he can, drive downhill, shoot the ball, things like that. London Jemison, he hasn't released a top list or anything like that, but he does have some official visits coming up. He won't be taking Syracuse, at least it's not set in stone yet. He's taking Alabama, Louisville, and Notre Dame. But I know that Syracuse is kind of up there on his list. At least he's considering them. So I think kind of looking out for Syracuse with London Jemison is probably a player you want to look out for. Unfortunately, Derek Dixon of Team Takeover is a player that I have not talked to yet. But I know Syracuse has offered him. I'm not sure on any sort of interest level, anything there. I plan on talking with Derek over the phone in the coming days, so I'll be able to give you guys updates there. But Derek Dixon, he has a Syracuse offer. I think he is somebody to potentially look out for from the guard position. Some other names, Keyshawn Tillery. I'm not so sure how in Syracuse is on him, but I'll say this. Keyshawn Tillery is one of my favorite players on the EYBL circuit. He's just a leader. He commands that City Rocks team. He is their point guard. He's a really good player, and Syracuse, I know, is somewhat involved. They haven't gotten a visit from him yet. Tillery has, I think, 4 officials planned out. One to Villanova is included there. So not so sure on their connection, but I think Tillery would be a good get for Syracuse if they do decide to pursue him. Just a few more people that Syracuse has offers on that I'm not so sure is ever really going to get anywhere here. Darren Peterson, to me, seems like a Kansas lock. He also has an Ohio State visit planned. He has another visit planned as well.
I think he was the highest rated player that Syracuse offered, but that was a while ago, and I haven't heard anything either regarding his recruitment, which usually is not the greatest sign. If you haven't heard anything, not a great sign.
Jerry Easter, he's another player that I know is somewhat involved with Syracuse, but I'll tell you this. With Jerry Easter, I couldn't tell you what schools aren't involved with him. He is very wide open and very open to hearing from pretty much every school. So I'm not so sure with Easter as well. He may be somebody to look out for, but with all the guards that Syracuse is recruiting, maybe not. One guy that I know Syracuse has been recruiting, Darius Adams. He said the schools that he's visiting are the ones that he is focused on. Syracuse was not part of that group, so I could probably count out Darius Adams for Syracuse. Cam Ward, another offer Syracuse has given out. He seems like Marquette lean to me, hasn't scheduled an official with Syracuse or anything like that. Those are just the Nike guys plus Darren Peterson. I can't really speak on Ufosa Oliogu, Ryder Frost, Nico Bundalo, Asher Elson, Chris Cenac, or Malachi Moreno. I haven't talked to those guys. I'm not sure what's up with their recruitments, but I know those are some other guys that Syracuse has offers extended to.
Got it. And with Ryder Frost, I believe there was some sort of visit between Syracuse and Frost. I don't know if it was official or unofficial at the top of my head. I've probably said it before on the podcast, but I do know that there is some sort of interest there. So
gotcha.
I don't think that they're out on Ryder Frost by any means. And the same thing with Chris Cenac, because Chris Cenac is a fast rising prospect. This is someone that, if you look at his profile about a year ago from today, he was not really rated. And then all of a sudden he's a top 10 player in the country.
The Blue Bloods are coming for Chris.
Everyone's going after him. So we'll see what happens. I haven't heard anything negative regarding that yet, but I don't know. I mean, we'll see what happens. I hope to get Cenac because, we've gone over a lot of guards here on this podcast. Sadique White's like the only forward and London Jemison as well, but we've gone over a lot of guards. We need some big fellas here.
Jackson, just imagine this just really quick. We'll just put it out there. Tyler Jackson, Acaden Lewis, Kiyan Anthony, Sadique White, and Chris Cenac. I'll just put it out there just really fast. Let you think about it just for a second.
So when are we winning the national championship?
If
expectations change, if you get a recruiting class like that, first of all, I think it would be number one in the country.
That would have to be number one.
It would be number one or number two because you can never count out Kentucky because they are always number one in the country in recruiting. I think they would beat out Duke. They'd certainly beat out Carolina. If you have the number one or number two recruiting class in the country, you have some starters and bringing in transfer portal and everything like that, the expectation at that point would not be make the tournament. Like, we're hoping to make the tournament next year, but if they were to get all five of those players that you mentioned, obviously they already have Sadique White in the boat, national championship, like, or very minimum, make the second weekend for crying out loud. I mean, the expectations change.
I think even if, they don't get all five, even getting, Kiyan and Tyler Jackson with Sadique White, just for Syracuse basketball, for college basketball, I think that would just be absolutely huge. Since Boeheim left, Syracuse hasn't, been the same that it was.
And it was really tailing off towards the end of Boeheim. Autry was his first year last year. So,
yeah,
we'll see. It's too early to grade him yet. He's not Kenny Payne of Louisville. So
you're talking about building blocks with this recruiting class that will last for a long time. And, I'll tell you this, I just a couple weeks ago was just watching some old college games. And one of the ones that I watched was the old Duke at Syracuse, whenever you guys had like the largest crowd
2014
in the history of college basketball. Whenever Syracuse is good, it is good for the game of college basketball. And I cannot wait to see potentially some of these guys like Kiyan Anthony and Sadique White play for Syracuse. I just think whenever the Orange are good, college basketball is good. So I'm excited. I am.
I was actually saying this to someone the other day. At some point, they're going to be good again. They have to be good at some point. You can't be bad forever. They've gone 3 years without the tournament. I think a lot of people are antsy, including myself. Just the way that the structure is set up in college basketball. I understand they don't necessarily have the NIL money like other schools. You can't be bad forever. You're gonna get good at some point. It is actually statistically harder to be bad for so long than it is to accidentally have one really, really good year. They're gonna get better at some point.
I've been through Kansas football, man. I know how it is. Trust me. You guys have not seen anything yet at Syracuse. Trust me.
You went to Kansas?
Oh yes, graduated.
Awesome. So you got to watch a national championship.
Of course, absolutely. With my own eyes, courtside.
That is unbelievable. What I would say is when Syracuse won the national title in 2003, I was 1 year old, so I can't really tell you. And I'm not from the area. I did go to Syracuse ultimately, but I'm not from the area, so I never really had some sort of allegiance to it until I actually went. I'm hoping that they get good, and I think they will. And if they get all five, like you just mentioned, they might have a parade.
It would break college basketball, probably.
Maybe I'd have a parade. I'd have my own little parade if they get it. Sam, is there anything else you'd like to add?
I think we've pretty much covered everything, man. I think that's pretty much it. Syracuse, they're going hard on the recruiting trail right now. I mean, that's basically what you need to know. Adrian Autry, he's not messing around this year. Sadique White, he's not messing around. He's trying to bring some of these top guys. They're going for it, man. They're going for it.
That's great to hear. And Sam, where can the audience find you?
On Twitter, I am at Slants Hoops. And of course, you need to stay tuned to zagsblog.com. Shout out my guy, my boss, Adam Zagoria there. I mean, we're up there with 24/7 and On3 now in terms of just recruiting coverage right whenever it happens. Plus, we have all sorts of 3 stars, 4 stars, some of your lower ranked guys to go through from Pete Sham still. So definitely be sure to stay tuned. We got everything recruiting going on at zagsblog.com. So definitely make sure to go over there.
Awesome. And I will leave a link to your Twitter and some of the pieces that you wrote in the description below. And thank you so much for taking the time, Sam.
Yeah, appreciate you, Jackson. Wouldn't want to do anything else on my birthday.
Absolutely. And happy birthday. Everyone in the comments section, wish Sam a happy birthday. All right, everyone. Take care.